the night before Adabox, and all through the land, all the makers were waiting, soldering irons in hand. With learn guides on standby and pink in her hair, they knew that dear Ada Claus soon would be there. With a good multimeter, some solder and flux, noses pressed against windows for UPS trucks. With quick wit and know-how, and boards made of bread, the makers await with projects in their head. The poem is too long to do the whole thing, but we can't wait to see what the Adabox brings. With good business practices and all of her smarts, Lady Ada helps us turn electrons to art. So do your thing and always ask questions. If the component is backwards, you'll sure learn a lesson. But errors can teach, and you have the power. Oh, Adabox, Adabox, please arrive any hour. Sayonara for now, but do hold on tight. Happy Adabox to all, and to all a good night.
Strap yourself in. We're launching in T-10 seconds. Destination? A new Class M planet called Adabox 19. M here stands for microcontroller because this Adabox is the first one to feature the newest technology from the Raspberry Pi sector. Say hello to the RP2040. It's a speedy little microcontroller with lots of GPIO pins and 64 times more RAM than the Apollo guidance computer. Get ready to upgrade your desk's mission control station with a CircuitPython-powered Macropad, complete with 12 buttons, OLED display, speaker, and rotary encoder. Customize it for your spacecraft to help guide you through the great reaches of the unknown. Or just have it type out your favorite emojis. On this interstellar journey, you won't be traveling alone. Our long-term Adabox partner, DigiKey, is the co-pilot and booster rocket. Just like a friendly astro mechadroid, they're always there to help us keep the ship running tip-top with plenty of repair parts and tools. Celebrate their contribution to Adabox with a custom-etched keycap that can be used on your Macropad or on any mechanical keyboard. Adabox 19! Macropad.
Welcome to the Adabox 19 unboxing. Thank you so much for joining us on our mission to planet Keycap in the Diode Matrix Galaxy. If you're a subscriber, you probably have your box by now and can join in on the unboxing. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe to Adabox 20 coming this fall. I believe we've escaped Earth's atmosphere, so let's enjoy the view from outer space as we become accustomed to our new zero-gravity environment. And special thanks to DigiKey for making this Adabox possible. Now, let's get our Adabox and have a look inside. Oh, what the heck? Let's just open the box. Sliding open the Adabox 19, the first thing we see is the lovely insert sheet with our gang of intrepid Adafruit explorers checking out space. They're off on one of their typical space adventures. And on the other side, we list the box contents, as well as links to Learn Guide tutorials and a coupon code that you can use on a future store purchase. Now, diving in. Ooh. All sorts of good goodies. Let's have a little bit of a closer look. Here's what we have in the Adabox Mission Control capsule. First of all, the Adafruit Macropad. This is a 3x4 customizable keypad, which is programmable in CircuitPython. It's starring the Raspberry Pi RP2040, which is a powerful chip that can act as both a USB HID and MIDI device. To plug into it, we have Kale box red switches. These are perhaps the most common switches in the galaxy with a smooth linear feel. Of course, you can replace them with any MX compatible switches you have on hand, thanks to the hot swap sockets. We've also got translucent DSA profile keycaps. These will snap right on top of your MX compatible key switches, and you'll be able to see the NeoPixels glowing right on up through the keys. Now, we also have the Macropad top and bottom plates. These are custom PCBs that will keep your Macropad stable while looking awesome, thanks to this gorgeous silk screen. Also included, we have a purple USB-C cable, an encoder knob, M3 screws, and little rubber bumper feet. That's not all, however. We've also got this custom DigiKey shine-through etched keycap. If you have an illuminated keyboard, you'll be able to see the color glow right through the top. You can also use it right on your Macropad. And finally, we have this CircuitPython Space Explorers sticker. It's so shiny and spacey. Slap this on the side of your rocket and let all of your intergalactic traveler friends know that you represent. May not survive re-entry into Earth atmosphere. Now, before we go any further, what even is a Macropad, you may ask? Is it something you can dance with? Yes. Is it something you can juggle? Probably not. Is it something you should caress? Possibly. Is it like a keyboard? Yes. Yes, it is like a keyboard. In fact, it's a USB keyboard which you can program to do what you want. But what you want could be anything. It can lay down a bunch of keystrokes for you as a Macropad usually does. It can do keyboard shortcuts. It can do
music by sending MIDI notes. It can do gamepad. It can do joystick. There are applications for such a device, especially one that lets you really customize the look and feel of it with different keycaps, different key switches, and this one has a little display on it so you can read out information or give yourself a hint as to what things mean. It's also got neopixels shining up through the bottom, which means colorful RGB LEDs that can again indicate things, blink when you need to pay attention to something. And there's this rotary encoder that's already soldered on there, which acts as a button when you click it and acts as an endless knob when you turn it. So what are the possibilities with the Macropad? They're infinite. 28 by 64 monochrome OLED for a crisp heads-up display that can be used in Arduino or CircuitPython to display key maps, stats, computer performance, and so on. There's also the rotary encoder with push button soldered in for you. You can twist and turn it or push it to change volume or monitor brightness or scroll, whatever you like. A tiny speaker can give audio feedback or play some fun bleepy tunes. If you want to add more hardware, we've got this Stemma QT port on the side that lets you connect any I2C add-on peripherals from the massive Stemma QT Quick family of plug-in boards. Now you can also dress up your Macropad with Paint Your Dragons, fabulous decorative silkscreen enclosure and hardware kit. You get these two custom PCBs that are cut to act as a protective bottom plate and a mechanically stabilizing key switch plate on top. You can use these included M3 screws to connect those. We'll take a look in a little bit how to do that. And since this is a symmetric design, you can decide which side you want up or down. You can also attach rubber bump-on feet to protect the bottom from skidding. Let's dig into the stats just a little bit here. Macropad runs on the Raspberry Pi RP2040 chip with 8 megs of flash memory, a dual-core Cortex-M0 at 130 megahertz with 264K of RAM. It runs CircuitPython, Arduino, or MicroPython with ease, with lots of space for development code and files. The USB-C connector is for both power and data. And of course, this can act as a USB HID device. Also, it can act as USB MIDI, UART, etc. The 3x4 mechanical key switch sockets accept any Cherry MX compatible switches, and they're individually tied to GPIO pins, not matrix wired. There's one neopixel RGB LED per switch on the north side of the switch, which can shine through. The rotary encoder has 20 détentes per rotation, with a push switch on a GPIO pin. The push switch on the rotary encoder is also used for entering bootloader mode. On power up, you simply hold it, then press and release the reset button, and then release the encoder switch. The 128x64 OLED is a monochrome display that is high speed and tied to SPI for quick updates. The 8mm speaker / buzzer has a Class D amplifier and an RC filter, so it can be used to make simple beeps and sound effects. And finally, there are 4 M3 compatible bosses that you can use for screwing on a backplate or attaching it to a 3D printed enclosure or other case. I think that you'll find that the assembly of the Macropad is actually pretty fun. First of all, we get to peel off the screen protector. Oh yeah. Then we're going to insert a couple of the key switches into the switch plate. So you'll note the orientation here. We have these 2 pins or legs oriented to match the socket, so down in the south position. And then we'll plug a couple of those into that switch plate, making sure they match orientation. They snap in nice and snug. And now what we'll do is very carefully align those little legs with the sockets on the Macropad. This is really important because they're so thin, they're easy to bend, so you want to just make sure to take it slowly and carefully so that you get nice alignment before you try to go and manhandle those into there. And now those are stable, and we can start to insert the rest of the switches. Again, just going through carefully and making sure to check the legs orientation before placing those in there. Sometimes you may find that one of those legs is bent just a little bit before you even try inserting it, so just push that down into place a little bit, and that should work just fine. I've also found that you can, if you have any question of did a pin actually make it in or not, if you flip it over and look at the little kale sockets here, you'll see the little tip of the pin shows up. If any of those are missing one, then you've got a bent leg. You want to pull it out and fix that and try again. There we have it. All of the key switches are in place. And now what we can do is go ahead and add the back plate. And here you've got a decision to make. Which way are you going to go? With the beautiful Vera Rubin satellite and golden record image side, or the Macropad control module interface side? I think I'm going to go with the control module visible on the back. It's not a permanent choice. You can always switch that later. Oh, one important thing before we do that, check and see the 4 little Kapton covers that you may find on the little threaded bosses here. You can just peel those off with a fingernail, or if you're having trouble, you can go in with a little pick, screwdriver or other tool. Okay, now we can go ahead and place that on and screw those in place with the provided M3 screws. Now, while you've got this flipped over, you might as well add the little rubber bump-on feet, which give you some skid protection on the desk. All that high-performance macro padding you're planning to do. No more skidding. Okay, what we can do next is put this little D-shaft compatible encoder knob with soft touch right onto the encoder shaft and just press down. And that's about as far as that's going to go. Yeah, just like that. I almost forgot, when we get ready to put on our keycaps, you'll want to grab 11 of the clear DSAs, and perhaps that one DigiKey cap can go right there. So these DSA ones, there's no proper orientation for them, so you can place them any way you like on there and just press them on. And now your Macropad is assembled and ready to get plugged in and start programming. If you want to plug it in, we have this USB-C to USB-A purple fabric cable. And you'll see that that just plugs right in like so. And now you are ready to plug this into your computer and get started coding. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in just so we can get a little bit of a demo of how things look. I've just plugged that into power. It's not on a computer, but you can see we get these beautiful rainbow colors. And the little demo program here tells us the encoder position when the encoder is pressed, and we get a little light show there. And each key that's pressed changes its color as well as reporting its status on the screen. There's no problem with ghosting and pressing all the keys at once. It's time for a parts wrap-up. Inside this Adabox, we have, of course, the Adafruit Macropad, Kale box switches, translucent DSA keycaps, the Macropad top plate and bottom plate, a D-shaft soft touch skirted rubber knob for the encoder, 4 M3 screws for rubber bump-ons, the pink and purple woven USB-C cable, custom etched DigiKey keycap, thank you DigiKey, and our CircuitPython Space Explorers sticker. I'm John Park, and this has been the Adabox 19 unboxing. Thank you for joining us. And next, we'll go live to explore some projects that you can build with your Macropad.
And now, that should be working a little bit better. Tell me if you hear the audio nice and clear now. It's all static, no audio. Test, test. Hopefully that'll work better now. We had a crash during our transmission that caused some unusual settings to get set. Better now, but low. Ah, okay. Well, that is a good sign. Let's turn up this here and this here. And now we should be a little bit better. Okay. Sorry about that. And also, I apologize because we had technical difficulties that messed around with our transmission. But now here we are back in front of you. So what I wanted to do is get back on track and say, first of all, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for participating. And for those of you who ordered your Adaboxes, thank you so much for your patience if those have not come in yet. We know that we're working hard to get those onto trucks and out to people. And some people have started to get their shipping notices. Some people have not yet. Some people have received them. So we run the gamut, but hopefully all will be taken care of soon enough. And then you'll get to play around with your Macropad, which is very exciting because it's an incredibly fun thing to find in your Adabox. At least I think so. And in fact, one thing I wanted to do right away is thank DigiKey for helping us in getting this Adabox out. And as you noticed, we have the very cool DigiKey silkscreen on the back, as well as the DigiKey keycap that you can place on top of one of your keys. And one thing I wanted to do is ask our good friend, Mr. Carl Sagan, to tell us a little bit about the Macropad. Mr. Sagan.
If you wish to make an Adafruit Macropad from scratch, you must first invent the universe. Copper, silicon, carbon, elements forged in the hearts of distant exploding suns. It is made of star stuff.
Very interesting, and thank you for sharing those facts with us. Who knew? Now, when you get an Adabox, one of the first things that people like to do is head on over to check out the Learn Guide. It looks like our Learn Guide is not showing up. Let's see where it went off to. This is part of the things that we lost in the, yeah, sure enough, there's weird missing screen capture. So you get to see behind the scenes a little bit how a Starman puts together a show here. I'm going to add a screen capture. And we're going to go ahead and configure that. Get ready for it. Hopefully it'll work. Hey, it's appeared. Oh, I see what's going on. All right, that's a little better. Let's see if I can move that off to the side. Ah, there we go. Would you believe this is the 19th one of these we've done? Incredible. Okay, so when you get your Adabox, you may want to go ahead and check out the Learn Guide, and that's just been published, and we just put out a blog post letting you know. The Learn Guide for the Adabox will let you know everything from the contents of it. If you head to this Unboxing Adabox page, you can scroll through there. Pardon me one second, I'm going to turn that AC back on because I think the sound didn't care about it, and my cameras are going to overheat. There you go. So that'll take you through the contents of the Adabox there with a little bit more detail. And then we have a page on assembling your Macropad that goes through those steps that I showed, as well as if you're interested in 3D printing a case for it, the Ruiz brothers have posted that, a nice little adjustable case. We also have a main guide on the Macropad itself from Kattni, and this will take you through, again, the assembly steps in a little further detail, pulled from the Ruiz Brothers video there. You can see that's the pre-production version of the backplate. We have some early ones that went out without some of the silkscreen and etchings, but the boxes have them. Oh wow, my AC just stopped. That's bad. Hold on. Let's get that. All right. If you've been wondering what life is like on Mars, it's a lot like this. Okay, so you'll also find the main guide has instructions on using the Macropad inside of CircuitPython, how to load it up, how to load CircuitPython on there and use the libraries. And then in the Essentials section, we have a dedicated library for Macropad, a library called Adafruit_Macropad that helps you use the Macropad with some convenient commands, so you don't have to set up the key matrix reading or the screen. A lot of those things happen under the hood with this library, using the rotary encoder, using the beeper. They all happen in sort of nice, convenient ways inside of the Macropad library. So definitely check that out first. Here's a little example here of some code for doing a beep, doing digital input, doing keypad. And then, okay, so those are vanilla versions, sorry. There's the Macropad library version. So if we click into here, now you'll see we have demos on the basics of just reading switches, displaying text to the screen. We all have sample code here to do things like this. Read the rotary encoder, clicks, playing little tones. And I'm going to show you some demos of these things in a moment. And as well as using the Macropad as keyboard and mouse, using the Macropad as a MIDI trigger. That was a piece of code that I was able to help Kattni with, and I have a little demo to show you there, as well as the docs on the library, and using it inside of Arduino. So thanks to the Earl Philhauer core, you can use Arduino on the RP2040 chip that's the basis of this board, which is pretty cool. Clicking along, we now get into the projects. So this is the project you're going to want to check out first. This is the Macropad Hotkeys project from Phil B. And this one has already started to get new templates made by people who want to control different things on their computer using the Macropad. So Phil provides some shortcuts for using things like Photoshop and a web browser like Safari, Illustrator, and there are versions of these for Windows as well as Mac. I found some of the Windows ones tend to work on Linux as well, on a Raspberry Pi. So this is the basic project you want to put on, and then you just mess around with a little config file to change the color, the text, and the function of each of those buttons. So this is a really great guide to get started with. If you've just opened up your Macropad, you'll see that the demo program on there is just a pretty light show, but if you want to get this thing working as an HID Macropad, this is the project to check out. The Macropad Summer Olympics Hotkeys is actually one of these variant projects that Isaac Wellish created using Phil's core program and then adding a config that gives you a few different pages when you turn the knob of the different stats on the sports that you can watch at the Olympics, as well as some shortcuts for launching different browser pages to watch the Olympics online through NBC and through your local cable provider or however you connect to watch on a browser. So that's really cool, and I have a demo of that going as well. There's a Ableton Live Macropad launcher that I created. This uses MIDI to launch clips in a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and it reads back MIDI coming from the DAW in order to keep lights and text in sync, which is like a miniature version of an Ableton Push. There's a Macropad 2FA authentication friend that was created by Carter Nelson, and this one is, as you can see, it's using some custom keycaps on there, little clear ones that you can print out your own labels, and that keeps a functional 2FA, two-function authentication password going with a service online. The Ruiz Brothers put out the Macropad Braille keycaps project, so you can check this out if you want to 3D print your own Braille keycaps so that you can use them to feel your way around this keyboard and then launch whatever you want to launch on a computer. Here is the 3D printed stand from the Ruiz brothers. There's a whole project on that. And then this is a side, sort of deeper look project from Dan Halbert, who created the underlying keypad library that we use to scan either the GPIO pins directly or through a diode matrix or with a shift register. So this will work on a whole slew of different types of keyboards, column row ones, which I'll be doing in an upcoming project, the SNES gamepad, which is a shift register, and then our Macropad, which is directly tied buttons to GPIO. And one last thing, we often get this question, and Kattni took care of this, I think, just today, which is, where do I get the original firmware, the firmware that came in my demo in the Adabox? I've put something else on there, and I want to go back in time to that happy time when I had that original demo. Here it is. So you can just follow to the last page of the guide for Adabox 19, and you'll get the firmware there. Okay, well, I think it's a good time to check out the... I'm going to check out the chat first of all to make sure no one's telling me that we've lost audio or anything scary like that. It looks like no red alerts. Shoo! So what I want to do is actually show you some demos. So let me head over to the workbench over here, and I'm going to give you a little overhead view as well. And let me head over there to show you some demos. Okay, so first of all, one thing I want to mention is this is sort of keyboard mania here. So the Macropad is part of Adafruit's getting really interested in mechanical keyboards. Some people, like Colin Cunningham, have been into them forever. Other people have more recently gotten excited about them. But we think that the Macropad is a really nice distillation of this mechanical keyboard madness hobby. It runs everything from 10 keyless, which is my main keyboard, using some clicky blue switches and some custom or group by 808 keycaps, to a big old battle tank of a ATXT keyboard here. This is using Blue Alps switches. This is a real old beast that I'm still trying to get working. To our own little custom Raspberry Pi Pico based Macropad type of keyboards. There's a couple here I've used mostly for MIDI projects. And then we, like I mentioned, we have some projects coming up that allow us to use this snap-apart ortholinear setup, and you can hot swap different keys in there. And one of the big deals about this hot swap thing is that there are a lot of keycaps in the world. So you can see here, I've got a little collection of some of the ones that we sell and some others that I have. Here's a silver Cherry MX. Here is a very clicky blue. Here's a jade, also super strong to press and clicky, to silent ones, to browns, tactile, much hated on, but I love them. And custom or specialized keycaps. So we've got we sell these little cute kitty keycaps here. We have the little shine through keycaps that let you see your LEDs through just a little window. We have some little smoke keycaps there, and we got some nice jewel tone color keycaps there. So this is actually a little project. I just put together some really simple code that just plays the tone playback. So there is that little speaker. So I just wanted to set up something sort of like the dual tone multifunction, but I just had it single tone for simplicity, of a telephone. So, and then here's that Olympics project. Let's see, actually, ironically, don't have my camera switcher. I have a little keyboard camera switcher, and I don't have it plugged in right now. So if I can keep things from falling apart here, it's okay. You don't need to see it up too close, but what you'll see is that I have the, this is the Olympics project on here, Macropad project. If I hit, let's say, NBC, it just fills in and launches the NBC website to watch some Olympics on there. I'm going to cover that so we don't get a copy strike. Close that real quick. That'll do. And this also, if you turn the little knob here, I can zoom in at least. That'll help. Let's go. way in, like there we go. You'll see as I turn this knob, we get different pages of keyboard shortcuts. So this has some different sports that you can click to go see their schedule and standings. So if you want to know what's going on in climbing or sailing or karate, you can go to this page 3, move on to page 4 and check out taekwondo, triathlon, and so on. So that's a really cool project using Phil B's keyboard shortcut main guide. Here was this little MIDI one that I had set up, that basic MIDI tester. I'm running it through this little mini synthesizer here using MIDI. And originally I set this up as USB MIDI, but now I have it working over our little Stemma QT cable there using UART. So I've set that up just as essentially a transmit pin. You can see I'm lighting this up as I press things. It's going to send MIDI. If I restart my keyboard over here, you should hear it play different notes. And I'm sending CC messages, which is what's giving me that changing frequency of the cutoff of a filter there. So that's another fun project. And then here's the main one right here, the one that ships with it, which is our beautiful light show. And I'm going to just plug that into a power bank. And speaking of power banks, some of these projects previously wouldn't work if they weren't plugged into USB HID compatible computer of some kind, particularly if you were using the Macropad library. Well, I talked to Kattni about that today, and she's fixed it and is going to PR that pretty soon. So you'll be able to do projects without any difficulty, such as this one, that don't need to be plugged into a computer, but use the Macropad convenience library. So let's see, I think that covers all of the demos I wanted to show. There are plenty more, and we're excited also to see people in the community are starting to post their own projects. There's a whack-a-mole game that came out, sort of a timed light changing and button pressing game that's great for the Macropad, and we're excited to see what else people do. Other games, you've of course got, we got to see some mini Pong show up on this little screen sometime, or Brick Out, please. I'd love to see that. So let me head back on over to the workstation here. And I think does that cover it? Let me look at, what else did I want to mention? I think that's all I wanted to mention. We've been here a long time. Thank you for sticking around. Thanks for putting up with some of my technical difficulties that I had. Again, questions about life on Mars. Life on Mars can be technically challenging. It also gets pretty hot here. Or maybe that's just Los Angeles. Maybe it's both. All right, so I'm going to check out anyone with questions in the chat. We'll hang around just for a couple more minutes. Also, Lady Ada and Mr. Lady Ada are in the chat, so if you have questions, head on over to our Discord. It's a great place to see what's going on and talk with a lot of people about fun projects, unboxings, project help, CircuitPython, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, all those good subjects are there. And I think that's going to do it. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much. And before I go, I know that we had some questions for our good friend Mr. Carl Sagan again. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, what are our best tips for survival?
The more you look like a samurai, the better your chances of survival.
Interesting. And I know there was something else someone had asked about some space wisdom, perhaps?
There is a big potato orbiting Mars.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for today. Again, thank you for Adafruit Industries. I'm John Park. Thank you to DigiKey for helping us make this happen. And thank you to you all for coming out. And with that, we sign off.
dinosaurs. Conclusion, dinosaurs.